Okay, we're live. Matt's getting a cup of coffee. So, welcome everybody to our expired day. So Matt and I are doing a Facebook group. We're going to change the name, but for right now, it's called Set Listing Appointments with Kent Brown. But we're on here with Redex. Hey Matt, welcome. And Redex has asked us to go over expireds, objections, different scripts that we use, different tonalities, everything that has to do with expired listings. I do a fair amount of expireds every year. Matt does more than a fair amount, or has done more than a fair amount. In 2019, Matt, how many expired listings did you list?
So I did, I went on 88 appointments, took 56 expired listings, actually 56 listings. I think maybe 3 of them throughout the year were FSBOs, but the rest were expireds. So that was a lot. I was a single agent with no assistant too, by the way. So if anybody's watching this going, yeah, but I'm a single agent with no assistant. Yeah. Okay. So was I. You can do it.
So tell us a little bit about scripts that you use, and we'll kind of feed off of each other of the different objections that you're going to receive with expireds. But let's talk about scripting with expired. So a lot of cold calls, you can just kind of wing it. And a lot of agents are really adverse to any sort of scripting.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on scripts?
Well, I used to think the same way, but what I have learned over time is that when you do something long enough, it becomes just part of how you talk. And so, and I think the hang up is people believe, or some agents believe, that the script that they have in front of them, they have to say it exactly like that. And I would argue that at first you do, until you get good at that script and you internalize it, and then you can kind of make it your own. But the reason agents, and I know everybody's seen these guys, they've been online, they've seen these guys that are on YouTube, and they watch these guys just set appointment after appointment after appointment after appointment, and they don't have scripts in front of them, and they're going this way and that way. But you know what got them so good was all the scripting they did for years before they got to that point. Like the gentleman we were on with 2 Fridays ago, he got on the phone, didn't have a script, and just all over the place and did great. And the reason he did, I would argue, is because he had so much experience using scripts that it became the way he thinks, and it became the way he spoke when he's talking to a prospect. So if you have no experience and you're trying to wing it and use your natural tone and your natural voice, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Learn the scripts, and it doesn't really even matter which one. Quite honestly, I'd love to tell you there's one special script, and if you use it, you're going to be a rock star. That's not true. Just get really good at the one you've got and be a rock star at that script. Yeah. And then if you don't want scripts because it doesn't sound like you, once you're really good, then your tonality and everything else will begin to change a little bit. But you'll notice that you have become a rock star because you've practiced it so much. You've done it over and over and over. So, and by the way, one last thing, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but this right here is my script book. I've been calling FSBOs and expireds for years, and I know these scripts inside and out. But every time I'm calling somebody, guess what I have in front of me? My script book. And the reason for it is if something happens that I'm not familiar with, or I'm tired, not having a great day, whatever the case, and the prospect takes me off the point that I'm trying to make, my script, having it in front of me or to the side of me, allows me to circle back around and bring them back to the reason we're having the conversation. So,
yep. Yeah, exactly. And I would argue too with expireds, they've done the song and dance of picking an agent that maybe wasn't that wasn't a good fit, allowed them to fail. And because of that, when they interview the next agent, 9 times they're interviewing several agents. So you need to sound polished and you need to sound professional. And that's what scripts allow you to do. I don't think scripts necessarily make you sound that way, but they allow you to sound that way.
I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah.
So So let's go over. Matt and I use a very similar script. So let's go over script practice. Let's just do a quick role play on how Matt listed, 50 plus expired listings 2019. And then you guys all have to know listing that many properties is very time consuming and very exhausting, especially when it comes to expireds.
Right.
So
I will tell you, doing it the way that I did it, hindsight always being 2020, I would have changed things drastically. Not in my scripting, not in my calling, not at all. That's what led to the success, right? You don't change what is successful. What you do change is the systems and the processes in which you use to deal with all of that. And so
Definitely.
I was suffering some burnout in 2020 simply because I'd worked so hard in 2019. And I did what a lot of real estate agents do, a lot of small business owners do. I tried to reinvent the wheel. And there were other guys that were just killing it. And had I modeled my business and doing what they had done, had I done what they had done, I think life would have been a heck of a lot easier. So if you want to reinvent the
Absolutely.
wheel, go ahead. But man, you're making it hard for yourself if you do that. So don't do that.
Have you ever heard of the 6 phases of mastery? Just to go off on a little tangent.
Not heard of it, not real familiar with it, but go ahead.
So a couple of things with 6 phases of mastery. First, you write out your plan of what am I going to accomplish. So all of us are coming up on the new year. We have a business plan. We have a diet plan. Matt and I are doing 75 hard. Somehow Matt talked me into it. And so we all have these great plans that we're going to do, which is the first step of mastery. What am I going to do? So what is it? How am I going to do it? And when is it going to be done by? So that's the first step of mastery. Second step of mastery is implementing those things for 90 days. So typically, a lot of people will get on the phone, they're going to prospect, they're not going to see a single closing, a single person say yes to them, probably for the first 90 days,
Right.
which is typical and normal. But after that 90 days, because you've stock loaded and filled up your pipeline, people are going to start funneling through that pipeline. And that's when you're going to start seeing deals close, which is really exciting. But the third phase of mastery is the momentum phase. And this is where most people fell hard. They spend 2 to 4 years in this mastery phase or in this momentum phase. Because like you, Matt, you get in momentum, and once the ball is rolling, something in motion is very hard to stop. That's why the rich get richer.
Right.
Typically, the poor get poorer. Because the rich get richer because they're always in motion. They always have that momentum. But the fourth step of mastery is figuring out the systems to stay in momentum. Because if you don't have those systems in place, momentum is a very hard thing to stay in, because you'll do all the work that got you that business, but you have to leave the work that got you the business to then go and find people to help you support the business that you're getting, or you experience burnout.
Right.
But we could go into a whole thing with that. But that's kind of what you experience. So let's go into scripting a little bit.
Sure.
I love role playing with Matt. I learned a ton. So Matt, I'm an expired. Call me.
Okay. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi, Kent. This is Matt. I'm a real estate agent here with Red Oak Realty, and I'm calling because my records indicate that your property was recently for sale, but it's left the market as unsold. Is that true?
Yeah, Matt, it is.
Okay. And that's what I thought. The reason I'm calling you is because I specialize in helping people just like you who've had their properties on the market, but were unsuccessful in getting it sold because their agent didn't do their job. Do you think that was the case for you guys?
I don't know if that was the case. I feel like our agent did a decent job, worked pretty hard. The market's just changed.
Right. So you feel like it's the market that kept your home from selling?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I do.
Okay. All right. Well, and let me ask you this. If we could bring a contract to you or an offer to you that made sense to you, that gave you the dollars that you needed, would you be interested in having your property back on the market so that you could ultimately sell it?
I mean, I want to make the move. My wife's just tired of the process, keeping the house clean.
Right.
You know how it is. It is a process to sell a house.
It's not easy, and that's a misconception a lot of people have. They feel like I put it on the market, it's going to sell in 2 days, and a year ago it would, but today that's not the case. Today you have to take the steps necessary to be able to get it on the market it aggressively, and ultimately get it sold. And that's exactly what we do for our clients every single day of the week. And we do work completely differently, which is going to virtually guarantee you and your wife two things. Number one, that if you put your house on the market with us, it will sell this time. And two, you're going to end up with way more money than you could get any other way. And that's a guarantee. And so, does that sound like something that you're looking for you and your wife? Because I know you said you wanted to make the move. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. And yeah, I mean, that is ultimately what we're looking for, but I just don't know how you're going to be able to do that.
Well, Kent, I think the next logical step for you and I is to meet, because I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide as to exactly how we're going to do it. And I'm going to be honest with you, if you and your wife aren't 100% convinced that we're going to sell your property for top dollar, just as I promise, then you have no obligation to hire me. So what I'd like to do is I like to meet with people in the afternoons or the evenings. What time is better for you and your wife, would you say?
Probably the evenings. We get off work at 5.
Okay, that'll work. Well, let's do this. Let's meet at 6:30 tomorrow, the 29th. I'll stop by, take a little bit of your time. I'll meet you and your wife, and I'll walk you through step by step exactly what our team is going to do to get your property on the market and ultimately get it sold it is about as hassle free as you can possibly expect. Moreover, I can even walk you through some programs that I think you'll be very impressed with, that will allow you to not have to sit and endure all the showings that come when you have your house on the market. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, great. I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions, and then we'll get this appointment booked for tomorrow at 6:30. And then
Great.
I would go through a pre-qualification with you, ask you some questions, find out what you think the house is worth, if you owe any money on the house, and then get some details about the property. That would be my pre-qualification.
Yeah. So why do you feel like it's important to pre-qualify somebody? Because I completely agree.
Well, because I used to not.
Yeah.
Because I was so excited about getting the appointment that it was like, oh, good, you got the appointment. All right, tomorrow at 6:30. And the problem with that is when you get there, you find out, one, they're not motivated at all. Two, their only form of motivation was they're the kind of people that say, well, yeah, if I'd get $1 million for it, I'll sell it. Well, it's worth 250,000. So you're probably not going to get that, right?
Yep.
So they have all the leverage, you have none, simply because you didn't pre-qualify.
Yep.
Moreover, and then number three, and this is a big one, this has happened to me too, and this is all, if I had paid attention to other people, I wouldn't have done this. I didn't know how much they owed on the house. And so I would get there and they would agree that we
They were upside down.
That's right. They would agree we'd need to sell it at a certain price, but then go, okay, Matt, we need to sell it at 350 instead of the 400 that we had it at, but we owe 348. In other words, they don't have the money to sell it and pay me. So I've wasted a tremendous amount of time. So pre-qualification is huge. And I'm to the point now that if I can't pre-qualify you, at least in a minimum way, I'm just not going to go on the appointment, because it's going to be a huge waste of my time, because I've done it so many times.
Yep. And some people, that I completely agree with every single one of those points. On another level, so my coach always put it to me this way. It's like going to a doctor's office, them saying, what's wrong with you? You saying, my stomach hurts, here, take these pills. And they ask you 0 questions other than that.
Right. That's a good point. That's a very good analogy.
They don't really get to the problem to best help you out. And not only that, it just makes it way more difficult. Maybe they are motivated. Like, you go out there, they're motivated, they're ready. But because you don't have all of the answers to the quiz that a pre-qualification gives you, you're not hitting the right buttons to make them act. So I always like to think of it this way. So any objections that you get, you handle logically, close emotionally. Well, if you don't know the emotion, how do you close emotionally? If you don't know the emotion tied behind it.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I loved with your scripting is you made it easy for me to set an appointment with you. Because really all it is we're looking for motivated sellers. We're not looking for the greed sellers that we had, 6, 7, 8 months ago. Like you said, price was the number one factor
Right.
into what they want. If I can get $1 million, I'll sell it. Well, it's worth 250,000. So me or anybody else is not going to pay you that kind of money for the house.
Right.
So I love that you made it easy, effortless to just set an appointment and get a second opinion on the
Good.
property.
Yeah. I don't want to make it. I am not a hard pushing guy. I used to think that I was, but that is outside of my personality. I've taken the disc profile and all these other tests and stuff. And I thought for sure I'm a real estate agent. I'm a go-getter and it's going to be high D, and nope, it wasn't. It was like D was like my third one down. I was like I and S. I like to be organized. I like things in their place. I like to do things in a certain order. And as I was reading through my profile, I went, holy crap. It's like they tapped into my brain somehow. But I was shocked because I wasn't high on the D scale. And so I was a little disappointed. So I ended up taking it again subsequently over years. I've taken that disc profile multiple times. And it says the same thing over and over and over.
You're expressive, right?
That I'm not a big, I like to talk, as you can tell.
Yep.
I'm a high I. So you get me and another I in the room, we will talk each other's ears off. Because we're good at that.
And get an analytical in the room. You're going to be you're just going to be going down a rabbit hole that nobody knows where it goes. Yeah. And the analytical is going to be here. Just like that's the difference. I've noticed that with analyticals as well. It's like, holy crap. You're really on point. And because I'm an expressive personality, you're really on point on what you're talking about. And I'm like, here.
Right.
Based on our conversation, we've talked about 10 million things already within our 15 minutes, which I love.
Yeah, that's right. We're all over the place. So if you're all over the place too, you're in the right place. Well, and when you're talking to someone who's very analytical or has a D personality, they're like, hey, give it to me. I don't want all the fluff. I just want to know.
Yeah.
And so over time, you learn to deal with that. And just give a lot more information, not necessarily more information, but more pertinent information. You cut out the fluff, and you learn that just as you go, as you deal with more and more clients. And that's why doing this every day, all the time is a good way to hone your skill and keep your skill at a very high level.
Yes, absolutely. Again, it goes back to when I do the activity, I'm either going to, and this is perfect with expireds. Expireds takes a lot of skill, and hate to break it to anybody watching, but we're moving into a skill-based market. So if you are not a skilled agent, you're going to be eaten alive. You may have done 50 transactions with zero skill, but the market's going to correct that immediately. If you don't have the skill, you don't know what to say, you don't know how to handle things. So expireds are going to be an extremely important part of the business. One thing I was thinking, there goes my ADD again, my expressive, so you set the appointment, you go out, and they have all these objections. So you're going to get objections over the phone. Matt and I were talking about this before we came in. Objections we don't necessarily want to handle over the phone ever. We want to acknowledge what they said. So repeat what they said, give them massive approval, and ask a logical question. Because what asking a logical question does, people justify with logic. So that's how you get them to justify meeting you. And they act on emotion. Right? So you're outgrowing your car. You have 3 kids. You go to a car dealership, and they're going to be like, yeah, you can fit. A crappy dealer or a crappy salesperson will say, hey, yeah, try this Ford Explorer out. It's great. Well, I don't really want a Ford Explorer. But if they close you on emotion, this Ford Explorer is fantastic. It has 7 seats. It has captain seats. So your third kid can just crawl in between the seats rather than having to climb over every single seat, you having to put your seat down. So they're going to build that emotion. And then logically, they're going to make you justify that decision because emotionally, they're going to attach you to it. And then they're going to have you justify it logically with the payment.
Agreed.
Same thing with sell. So let's talk about this. Objection handlers. What are common objections that people are going to get with expired? So a couple of things. We're going to get brush offs and objections, and then you're going to get things that you just can't control. Like that, oh, I lost my job, so now we can no longer sell and upgrade the home that we want. Guess what? There's no objection that you can handle to make that situation different.
You mean I can't outscript that?
You can't outscript that.
I got an objection handler for that. Let's set the appointment.
Well, let's talk about objections. So we did scripts, common objection. So when I call, almost the first thing, and this is a brush off. This is like you go into a department store, someone says, "Can I help you?" You say, "No, I'm just looking." Brush off. So that's the most common brush off that people can relate with. So let's go through this A to Z of the conversation. What are objections and brush offs that you're going to get? So you first call somebody, Matt, I'm no longer selling. We're not selling any, but they won't say it that way. They'll say, "Oh, we're not selling anymore."
Yeah. Or we've decided to stay, or I've taken it off the market, or right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll say, "Oh, okay, I understand." So my handler to that would be, because again, one of the things I'm thinking is you want to find their motivation, because if you know their motivation, just as you said, you can connect logically and then close emotionally, right? So if you are finding what their motivation is, you can then press that button over and over and over and over and over, right? So if someone says, "We're no longer selling," "Oh, I understand. Thank you for sharing that with me. When you were selling, or when you had it on the market, what had you wanting to sell it to begin with?" Right. And then they're going to say, "Well, my daughter she graduated high school and we wanted to downsize." And so they go through this whole thing, and a lot of times they'll open up to you when you ask them, "Oh, okay, well, when you had it on the market, what made you want to sell it?" Because they had a reason when they originally had it on the market. And so the goal is to find out what that reason is, or their motivation, so that you can continue to press that button for motivation.
But that's part of your scripting, right? Someone says that, you know how to handle it immediately. That's extremely important with objections, especially
we decided to stay. We're not selling. Yeah. That's
because you hesitate even a little bit and just say, "Oh, okay." And you pause. People are just
click. You know what I find though, too, is funny about that. And I think you and I may have spoken about this, but what I have noticed in calling thousands of expireds over time, and this is with anybody, expireds, FSBOs, cold calling, whatever. When someone gives you an objection, it is very rare that they say, "Not interested, got to go," click. It's very rare that they do that. That almost never happens.
Hardly ever.
What they do is they wait a second. They'll say, "I'm not interested." And then they'll hold on the line for just a second longer, because and I don't know why they do it. The only thing I can think of is they subconsciously want to hear how you're going to handle what they just told you. So it is very rare, because I used to think when someone said, "I'm not interested," that they were hanging the phone up. They are not. 99% of the time, they're going to hold for about a second longer. And that's just long enough for you to say, when they say, "We're not selling anymore." Okay. When you were selling, what had you interested to have it on the market at the time? And now they have to stop and think, because it's a pattern interrupter, right? They're used to saying, "Okay, well, blah, 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 blah," right? You've interrupted their pattern, and now they have to stop and think and go, "Well, okay, well, our daughter was graduating high school." And so that's why.
Yeah. And so that's huge for me, because when they give you a good answer, it's typically because there's motivation tagged behind it. With motivation comes cooperation. When people are cooperating, they're typically motivated.
Right.
They're just not going to flat out say, "Yeah, I have to sell. Come on over."
Well, yeah, because
sometimes they do.
Once, they're afraid to tell you the truth. In a lot of instances, you have to draw that out of them. Yep. And people are guarded against people they don't know. mean, if someone walks up to me on the street and says, and was started talking to me about wanting to sell my house, I would instantly be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Right.
I'm a realtor.
Yeah. But I'm a realtor. You want to tell me everything? No, I don't. So you would have to draw that out, ask me questions that uncover my motivation. And when I start talking about my motivation, all of a sudden I become a lot more animated. I'm willing to share. And that's exactly what these prospects are. You just have to learn to do it quickly.
Yes, absolutely. So that's part of, so Matt and I are going to go over how we handle different objections that you're going to get. So one thing I want to point out with this, so repeat, approve. You can have your daughter come in. That's fine.
She's on the couch behind me watching TV. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So repeat, massive approval, ask a logical question, and then close. If you do that 2-3 times, because most sellers have 2 or maybe 3 objections that they'll give you. After that, they have exhausted all of their all of their scripting.
Right.
So it's funny that we expect sellers are scripted, but we expect ourselves not to be. You have to be. So I just wanted to point that out. So you get an objection. Okay, we're no longer selling. We took it off the market. Repeating allows you to have that pause. Instead of saying, just repeat what they say. It's just as good, but it keeps them on the phone. So you're no longer selling. I completely understand. That makes a lot of sense. So massive approval. That makes a lot of sense. Is that because you need more time in the home? Or do you simply just feel like you couldn't get the price that you need? Typically, it's neither one of those things. Oh, no, our plans had changed. Okay. I understand that. So your plans had changed. Was it the plans that had changed or the feeling about the plans that you had that changed? So you're going to chase down that rabbit hole a little bit. And then the next logical question is exactly what you said. Well, had the home sold, where were you going? What were the plans? You need to know where they were going. You have to find that emotional button. But here's the kicker. So that's what you're going to get on the initial part of the call. 9 times out of 10, we're no longer selling. Take me off your list. I sometimes get. I'm on the do not call list. Sometimes you get that too.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be.
I get the 2 biggest stalls or brush offs that you talked about, Kent, are I'm not interested. I'm busy. I'm in a meeting.
Yeah.
So
I'm in a meeting. I'm busy.
It's so funny because they answered the phone, but I'm just too busy to talk to you. Wait a minute. You're so busy that you answered a phone call from a person you did not know. You took that call. You must not be that busy. Right. So that truly is a brush off. That is a stall. It's very rare that the doctor answers and says, look, I'm right in the middle of a surgery. I can't keep going. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's legit. But even still, I'm like, why'd you answer the phone, doc? So, so that's a big brush off. So that's why you want to find, if you want to ask them motivating questions, I can't talk right now. When's a good time to call you back? Or they say, well, maybe this afternoon. And then you can, right after that, you can say, great, that's what I'll do. Don't get into times because they're going to hang up on you. Then you'd ask them. And one of the things I like to say is, in 30 seconds or less, Kent, tell me what had you wanting to sell your house originally? Well, my daughter, and all of a sudden you find that I can't talk to you. I'm too busy. All of a sudden, a minute goes by, 2 minutes go by, and you're still on the phone with them.
Because they're talking.
That's exactly right. Because all you did was you asked them about, you found something that was when's the best time for me to call you back? Or what time of day is better to call you back? Or when can I call you back? That's the fastest. They'll say afternoon, evening, tomorrow, whatever they say. Okay, great. Hey, in 30 seconds or less, tell me what had you wanting to sell your house to begin with. Pattern interrupt. And now all of a sudden they're talking to you again. Well, my daughter or my wife decided. And then you get a little motivation. You get to put that in your notes. And when you call them back tomorrow afternoon, as they've asked you to do, now you have something to talk about. Hey, Kent, remember yesterday you were telling me that your wife decided that she didn't want to downsize. She actually wants to upsize. I wanted to touch base with you and talk to you about that. We have some beautiful homes on the market right now. So, now's the time to sell it and upgrade.
So the one thing that I love about that is, yes, you're pattern interrupting, but you're doing something else as well. So initially you're saying, hey, you're in charge. I give up. But then you're pattern interrupting, because what they're thinking is, I've talked to 10 other realtors that line worked perfectly on, and they all hung up.
Right.
They all gave up as soon as I said that. So what do you think they're going to say to every other realtor that calls them?
That's their script, right?
That's their script.
They're
Yeah,
trained.
I know it works, so I'm going to use that. So that's the brilliance in, oh, okay, I'll go ahead and take you off my list in 30 seconds or less. However you want to say it, I'm on the do not call list. Take me off your list. Never call me again. Okay, let me go ahead and update my list in 30 seconds or less. So what had you selling in the first place? I love that. That is brilliant.
Right. Because then
absolutely brilliant.
You've already told them up front, I'm not going to take much of your time. I'm just curious. And, too, when someone says, why'd you want to sell? If you don't sound like you're truly curious, they're not going to answer your question like, another sales guy. You go, I'm just curious. In 30 seconds or less, what had you wanting to sell to begin with? Right? Like like I'm legitimately curious. I would like to know.
So typically we role play over the phone, so we don't see each other face to face. But I wanted to point something out for people that go back and watch this. You see how you scrunched your face? Maybe you didn't see it. I saw it. You scrunched your face. In 30 seconds or less, what had you wanting to sell? So body language is what, 72% of how we communicate?
Yeah.
We don't get that over the phone, but it's still important.
Well, and I watched a guy calling FSBOs and expireds. And this guy's been, I wish I could remember his name because he was fun to watch. But he had a computer. He had his computer here in front of him. He called expireds and FSBOs every day, and he had a great business. That was the thing. A lot of agents are, I'm gonna call FSBOs and expireds, and then I'm gonna get away from that. He's like, nah, I have a huge database. I touch with my database all the time. I stay in contact with my database, but I also call FSBOs and expireds as well. And he goes, I do it every day because that's been a portion of his business for literally a decade. Well, the guy had a mirror over his computer. It was a big one, and it was positioned so that it was like over the ceiling and attached to the wall, or from the ceiling and attached to the wall, so that it tilted towards him. So every time he's talking on the phone, he could look up and see if he's smiling. Because he said, I guarantee you, and you could tell, because he would stop smiling and talk, you could tell. And then he'd start smiling, and all of a sudden his entire demeanor changed, his voice changed, how he iterated his words changed. I mean, it was crazy. And that's exactly how we are. And so I thought, what a great thing. Now, I don't know if I'm going to hang a mirror from my ceiling here, but I thought it was pretty impressive that he did, because he could see his body language. And if he was pulled in, if he was hunched over, if he had a scowl on his face, that was coming across in how he was talking.
But all of those things are important. All of those body language movements are important during the expired script. And that might overwhelm people. But let's say, again, you're asking a question because you really want to know. You should be asking those questions like, I really want to know, because people will answer it that way. So you scrunch your face. That's first thing. I really want to know. So you're going to do it like this. Like, I really want to know. Tell me. Now, let's say that, hey, where are you moving to? I'm moving to Houston. You want them to get excited about moving to Houston, right, Matt?
Oh, yeah. I said, hey, great. We would love to have you.
So you see how you opened him up. Come on in.
Huge. We have tons of job opportunities. We'd love to have you here in Houston.
We'd love to have, and you're smiling. We'd love to have you. Your excitement goes up. Now, do you want to do that if they said, hey, my agent sucked? Great, your agent sucked. That's fantastic. No.
Oh, yeah. No, you wouldn't. You'd say, gosh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's really unfortunate. I'm sorry it didn't work out the way you wanted.
You're scowling now. You're scowling. See that?
What was it about
all of those? Body language is important with the script. And that comes with time, right? If you're brand new, you're not really necessarily going to do that. But if you say, okay, I actually care about the person on the other end and their plans and how I can help them, that body language is naturally going to just come.
Right. And you know, it's funny when you say that I genuinely care about the person on the other end of the phone. I used to not. You were a number to me. You were a check box because I got to talk to you, or you were an appointment. I was a love them and leave them type of realtor. I'm going to get you as an expired or a FSBO. I'm going to list your home. I'm going to make a little money. I'm going to move on, and I'll never talk to you again. And what I have learned in being in real estate is that if you value the relationship you're creating over the transaction, it truly is. I mean, it truly is a difference, and it also allows you to be yourself. It also allows you to have fun when you're on the phone. Hey, calling expireds all day, that can suck if you are not being yourself. If you're trying to be this hardcore, hammer hitting prospector, because I've tried that, I've done that. That's not a fun way. That's not a fun way to prospect, man. Have fun with these people. Be yourself. And when you are truly interested in the other person on the other end of the line, and you're trying to determine in your mind while you're talking to them, can I help this person? Because there's some people you're going to get on the phone with, no matter how nice they are, you just can't do anything for them. You can't help them. But if you can, you're like, gosh, Kent, I'm really convinced that I can help you get your property on the market and get it sold this time. And I'd like to meet with you and show you exactly step by step how we're going to do it. I like to meet with people in the afternoons or evenings. And then, so all of a sudden you're very genuine and you truly do care about the person on the other end of the phone, not just the business. And that's important.
Yeah, exactly. So wire afternoon, I wholeheartedly agree with that because it helps you detach from the outcome too.
Right.
It's just, if I can help you, I know I'm the best person that will be able to help you long term. I know that because I have a plan in place. I know how to list homes that didn't sell before. I know how to communicate with you, tell you the truth, so on and so forth. But if you just care about the paycheck, you'll always be attached to the outcome. And it will come through over the phone. So I love that. So let me ask you this. I like to meet with people in the afternoons or evenings. Why not the mornings?
Because I'm prospecting. Because in the mornings, I'm doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is being on the phone, trying to get people to make appointments with me.
Yeah, exactly. Great point. And that's what I was hoping you would say.
Yeah.
So let's move on to some other scripts or some other objections, because objections are super important. And then to wrap it all up, let's talk about a good listing presentation, because I know I've done boot camps for RedX and I've helped people with expired listings, and even myself, I didn't have a listing presentation nor listing materials that I could use to be like, oh, I'm confident that I want to set these expired appointments, go out, and I'm going to do a good job. It was a total ego thing, but it is something that, setting appointments is like 90% mindset. Okay. So when I feel like I can best help you, I have a step-by-step process that I will absolutely follow. It's going to come over as confidence over the phone, and you're going to be more likely to get appointments. But first off, let's talk about some common objections. We're going to wait till spring. That's a huge one right now. January 1st is coming up, largest expired day of the year. People are going to say that over and over and over and over again. So, Matt, we're going to wait until the spring. How do you handle that?
Well, thanks for sharing that with me, Ken. I can understand that. But if I could show you how we could sell your property now and actually net you more money now, would you be interested in hearing how we could do that versus selling in the spring? Well, how are you going to do that?
Yeah, this is okay. So let's go. It'll roll right into another objection. Well, I don't get how you're going to do that.
Well, exactly I actually have a step-by-step process that we go through, and I'm going to show you all of it step by step. Would you like to see that process ultimately so that we can show you exactly how we're going to get it sold for more money now than you would get in the spring? Would you like to see that step-by-step process?
Yeah, I guess it couldn't hurt.
Okay. Wonderful.
Let's
Step
say they
one.
object. Let's say they object to that and say,
Okay.
"Well, just tell me what you're going to do."
Okay, I certainly will, and thank you for asking. Step number one, you and I need to meet. I like to meet with people in the afternoons or the evenings. Which is a better time for you? It's
I love
always,
that.
yeah, it's always, well, no, I'm not interested. I'm just tell me over the phone because you get that all the time, right?
All
They
the
want
time.
you to handle the objection and convince them over the phone that you're the guy, but there's almost no way you can do that. That happens, but it's rare, and you certainly can't make a business out of that. So
See,
that's
I love that you're always moving towards the appointment.
right.
I
That's the
love that.
ABCs, right? Always be closing.
Always be closing, but it to me it doesn't feel like, oh, you're just closing me. You're not hearing me. You're not listening to me.
Right. Yeah.
So
No,
those,
I want to show you how we're going to do that, how specifically we're going to do that. And a lot of agents, I think, because I've done this many times, and every once in a while I'm guilty of it. They'll handle the objection and give the answer. They're so anxious to give the answer, right? That they give the answer in their objection handling. And when you do that, right? Because we know that listing inventory is going to go up in the spring. You're going to be competing with a lot of other people. Whereas in the wintertime, January, February, there's not near as many houses on the market. Agents want to get into that conversation on the phone. And that's a legitimate conversation. And you're going to tell them that in the listing appointment. The problem is if you're spending all of that time doing that on the phone, a few things are going to happen. Number one, their curiosity has been piqued, and then you've already fed their curiosity. So now they don't need to meet with you, right?
yeah.
And then number two, you're taking up way more time than you should, and you can talk yourself out of an appointment. I've done it. And so you've got the
Well, and
appointment.
the more you talk, the less likely they are going to meet with you.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Exactly
The more they talk, that's a crazy thing, though. The more they talk, the more likely they are going to meet with you.
That's
The more
right.
you
Because the
do,
more they talk, that means they're feeling more and more comfortable with you. And as they talk, they'll open up, they'll share their motivations, they'll share what's going on. And those are great opportunities to listen, affirm them. Oh, yeah, I understand. Yeah. So
yep.
yeah. So
And so
go
that
ahead.
brings up the point of the importance of asking questions,
Right.
because questions create dialogue.
100%.
That's it. Questions, just like if you go and watch any good interviewer, which I'm not, but if you go watch any good interviewer, I think Patrick Bet David is probably one of the best ones out there. And I love watching him just purely for the fact that he'll ask questions and then he listens. And it's like an hour of them talking, 2 minutes of him talking. It's wild.
And it's so funny because I have been on listing appointments where I probably said a handful of words, and the sellers are like, "Matt, I feel so confident. I feel like I can trust you." And the reason for it is they talked the entire time. They talk. And all I did was just feed into that. Oh, okay. And then I'd ask another question. Well, what has you thinking that way? What made you want to do that? Why would you choose that direction? Talk. Matt, I just feel like you and I are best friends. I've said like 8 words. So
Well, go to a therapist.
that's
The people that you tell your deepest, darkest secrets to.
Yeah, and they get paid $180 an hour.
Yeah.
For you to do it.
Listen and ask questions. That's all they do.
And what's so funny is because you think, gosh, this therapist, $180 an hour for me to go and let them ask me questions and me blab to them. You as a real estate agent should be making way more. You should be making about $400 an hour. And
yeah,
you're going to be doing
on the phones.
You're going to be doing a lot of the same stuff. You're going to be asking questions, getting responses, responding to those responses, setting appointments, closing deals. You'll be making a lot more than the high dollar therapist. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
well, let's go into this. So I want you to ask me the same question. So I want to see Matt and I handle objections a little bit differently.
Right.
So it's good to see different views, but it's funny because we kind of are molding into each other. The more we prospect with each other, and the more we do this, the more I can see us morphing in our objections.
Right. Well, it's so funny because you were talking about your objection. Do you need more time in the home, or is it where you just couldn't get the price you wanted for the home? So actually, as you said that, I was writing that down. I was like, oh, I like that. So, and I've heard you say it before, and I didn't write it down, but I like that. And so I have a list of objection handlers for expires and FISBOs, and every once in a while I'll go back and revisit those and go, okay, which one do I like better? Which one do I feel like digs a little deeper or asks the question in a more precise and concise way to get me to the answer that I want or that I'm looking for, not necessarily that I want. And so I like to write down all of those types of things. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, a black belt in karate is a black belt because they know how to handle a move 7 different ways.
right.
Right.
That's
So
right.
if you
That's
only
exactly
know
right.
if you only know how to handle an objection one way, well, sellers are going to ask you the same objection because again, they're scripted. They have 3 or 4 things in their mind that they're going to ask 7 different ways. And if you just repeat the same thing over and over again, they're going to say, what is wrong with this guy?
Right.
You have to learn how to handle it multiple different ways. So we're going to wait until the spring. How I typically handle that is I can totally appreciate you guys waiting until the spring. So a couple of things that I'll do. I want their motivation. What is important about the spring? Because they're talking to me at this point. So they're going to let me ask some questions. So Matt, what is important about the spring to you?
Well, I feel like because we had our house listed, we've had our house listed for like 90 days, 120 days, whatever the number is. And we came into the wintertime and we saw the showings just dip. And I think it's just the market. So I think as we come into the spring, the market's going to get better. And we'll be able to, some of this craziness that's going on, I think will settle down and we'll be able to sell our house then.
Okay. So hopefully increasing showings, getting more money, having more activity in the spring.
Correct.
Okay. And are you aware with what interest rates have been doing for the last 6-7 months?
Yeah, they've skyrocketed. Yeah, I'm aware of this.
They fluctuated, right? So they go up and then they dip down a little bit and then they go up and dip down. So right now we know that interest rates are decent. They're at 6%, which is way better than the 7-8% that they were at.
Right.
So if you knew that by selling now, not only would you sell, but you would net bottom line, put more money in your pocket. If you knew that for a certainty, would you take immediate action or would you still wait?
Yeah, no, I'd take immediate action if I knew that for certain. Yes.
And all I'd like to do, Matt, is come over, give you a second opinion. Again, I'm asking a logical question, so I'm making you think. It's rolling around in your brain. I have your emotion. So let's say you're moving to Arizona for grandkids, right? So I'm going to close you with that emotion, but I want to go into logic here. So what I'd like to do is come over, give you a second opinion on what we're going to do to get your home sold now so you can get to your grandkids in Arizona, because I know that is important to you. I'm bringing up your emotion. And if really we can't get it sold, we feel like the spring is still best, you can always go back to plan A, right?
Right. I like that. How you said, hey, listen, let me show you how we can do it this way to get you more. And if that doesn't work, we'll just default to the way you're currently thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And so that it gives them choice. And sometimes a prospect needs to be told what to do. But in an instance like this, it's like, look, hey, let's explore plan B. And if that doesn't make sense to you, you still have the way you're thinking. You still have plan A. So I really like that a lot.
Yeah. And again, if we can't get you to your grandkids in Arizona, we can't net you more money right now, you're just going to wait till spring. Yeah, exactly my thinking. So logically, they're thinking, well, yeah, I guess it can't hurt to get a second opinion.
Yep, I like that. See, I told you I'm taking notes.
There you go. I'm recording this, so I'm just going to go back and watch it.
You gotta send me the recording then, because I have to do it the old school way and take notes.
So that's another objection. Another objection that you're probably going to get is we're going to list with the same agent. Hear it all the time. Now we're just going to list with the same agent, Matt.
Well, I understand. And let me ask you a quick question. If you stay with the same agent, what are they going to do differently this time than they did last time?
Well, I don't know.
Okay. Now, don't take this the wrong way. I'm certainly not trying to be offensive here, but do you know what Einstein said about doing the same thing over and over, trying to get different results? Ultimately,
Yes.
I'm assuming that your agent did the very best that they knew how originally. But a lot of times in a market like this, you need a second opinion. You need to see other ways of doing things. And that's exactly what I'd like to offer you, is show you how our team works completely differently than just about any other agent out there. So that we can ultimately get your property back on the market and get it sold for top dollar. So again, you owe it to yourself to get top dollar for this property. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Then I think the next logical step for you and I is for me to just come in and meet with you and give you a second opinion and show you how we would list it on the market. And if you're not 100% convinced that our team can sell your property the second time around, then you certainly don't have to hire us. You can go back to plan A, which is your original agent. Is that fair enough?
That's fair.
Okay. I like
See,
to
that takes off all pressure.
Right.
I guess if I don't like you, I'll just go back to plan A.
That's exactly right. You've already got your current agent. You're going to do one of two things. Number one, you're going to interview me and you're going to either decide that, nope, this isn't my guy. I'm going to go back to my agent. My other agent's a rock star. Great. Or B, you're going to interview me and go, wait a minute, he's going to do things completely differently. And it makes a lot more sense to hire this guy than it does to stay with my current agent. So those are the two choices. And they're not saying that out loud, but in their mind, they're thinking it real quick.
Yes,
So I want to do
absolutely.
that. It's not going to hurt.
Well, one thing I like to throw in as well. So I always say worst thing that happens is you get a few ideas that you can have your agent implement to guarantee that your home gets sold this time around. And if he's not willing to implement them, you know somebody who will.
Right. That's a good one. I like that. So
Okay.
you're basically putting the onus on his agent. Going, hey, look, I'm going to show you stuff. I'm going to show you some stuff behind the curtain, a little bit of magic that your current agent isn't doing.
Yeah.
But if you still want to hire the guy because he's your brother, then you can let him know.
As soon as it's my mom or sister or family
Right.
member, I'm like, hey, I don't want to make Thanksgiving awkward. Talk to you later. I typically won't spend my time going after those people. I don't know that you do, but
I always say something silly like, well, my sister is the agent or my brother or whatever. And I'll say, so are you telling me that I cannot compete and beat that agent if I came and interviewed with you? And they're like, well, no. And then we'll start laughing. And I'll say, hey, look, best of luck to you. I hope you and your sister get this property sold. Thanks for your time. Y'all have a great day. And then I'll remove them from my list because I want to make sure that we don't call them again.
yeah. Or it sounds like I've got stiff competition.
That's right.
I love that.
Well, yeah. Or, what I like to say is, well, your sister sucks. Let me come in and show you. Let me come in and show you how a real agent does it.
That's for the real confident people out there.
House? This guy.
Well, that's I love how you handle that. I think that's great. Again, giving you different perspectives, different ways to handle it, so you can have one or two different ways to do it. I say, Matt, I certainly appreciate loyalty to your agent. Let me ask you, is it plan A to go back to this agent, or was that plan B?
Right. Well, I guess plan A, because we originally hired this agent to get our house sold, and now we're having to readjust.
Okay. What do you think stopped plan A from working last time?
Great question. I'm going to say it's the economy and the market.
Okay.
So, because my agent's a real nice guy. So I think it's the economy.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate the loyalty. That's one thing that I appreciate more than anything. Let me ask you this. Sorry, I don't know what I was looking at, but my brain went.
Right. But it's so funny because when you're in the moment and you're talking to somebody, you focus. It's like this laser.
I'm focused. It's because there's like people writing on the screen, commenting, and I
Right.
see it ping up, and then my scroll brain's like, scroll. So, so what I typically ask is, Matt, I'm sure you're like most and have a lot of equity in your home, right?
Yes.
And you're probably looking to capitalize on every dollar and net the most amount of money.
Absolutely.
So with so much equity on the line, don't you deserve to get a second opinion and make sure that you're absolutely making the right decision?
Well, I mean, that does make sense. I mean, my agent currently he's a real nice guy, but we do need as much money out of this house as we can get.
Absolutely. It's a business decision for you. And if net bottom line, we can put more money in your pocket. I already understand I have really stiff competition, but if we can do that for you, get you sold, get you to Arizona in the time that you're looking for, wouldn't it be worth a 20-minute appointment to get that second opinion?
Yeah, I guess so. I'll talk to my wife and we can.
Absolutely. I want her there as well. And at the end of the day, if nothing I say makes sense, you don't have to hire me, do you?
Well, no, that's true. That's a
Just
good
go
point.
back to your other agent. So it's easier for me to take someone out of my schedule than put them in last minute. Let's tentatively set an appointment. I have this afternoon, or would tomorrow work better for you?
Tomorrow would be better because I do want to speak to my wife.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure she's there as well. Should we tentatively put it for 4 or 5 o'clock?
Let's do. She gets off at 3, so let's do 5.
Fantastic. We'll do 5 o'clock. Would it be okay if I called you at 2 o'clock tomorrow just to confirm that that time works for your wife?
Yeah, that'll work.
Then I would call you back.
Perfect. Perfect. I like that. And yours is very conversational versus transactional, and I like that. So transactional is give, take, set appointment, you're done. Whereas yours
Yeah.
is very much, it's more of a conversation that you're having. And that's really what you want, because as soon as you have a conversation with someone, like a legitimate conversation, all of a sudden their guard is let down. They've been called by 157 agents this morning already. So they're probably a little worked up, maybe a little irritated and agitated. And then you call, and all of a sudden it's like this breath of fresh air, right? So instead of
Yeah.
this very transactional phone call, it's more of a conversation. It's like, hey, don't you owe it to yourself to get in a second opinion? Wouldn't it make sense to do X? And it's very non-threatening, and it comes across as just two buddies talking to each other. And I think,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and that's spot on. That is
It's
spot
exactly
on. I
what
mean,
you want.
every agent wants to have this verbal ninjutsu that they can do to kind of, be just as slippery as an eel, to slide you into a certain way of thinking or to say the right thing. And, but a lot of times that's not necessary. It's just being real and having a conversation with them. So
Yeah.
sometimes it is.
And that's what,
Having that skill is important. But I think where you really pay it off is when you have a more honest conversation with them.
yep. It's kind of like with for sale by owners. When I
Right.
come over and preview the property, and then you're sitting down for an appointment and telling them why they should sign with you. They're just like,
Yeah, I've been
I have a buyer.
Right. Yeah, it's a complete bait and switch. No, I totally. And then they're sitting down with you. They're enduring you at their kitchen table, and they're feeling like they just got duped by you. And
Yep.
and so now you have to overcome. That, which I don't know that I'm not saying it's insurmountable. I've closed FSBOs like that, but I would just prefer not to.
It's a little bit of a harder road, certainly. Well,
Mhm.
that's most of the objections that you're going to get. And we
Right.
went over closes. I mean, there's certainly more, but that's the basis of what you're going to get, just asked in a different way. But for the most
Right.
part, if you get through the first 2 or 3 objections that they give you, they've ran out. And the only thing that they'll do is just meet with you. And hopefully you're
Right.
asking the right questions to make them think logically, to say, yeah, it would make sense to meet with Matt. It couldn't hurt. So a lot of different ways. Let's talk about listing presentation. If
Okay.
you're like me, and and we'll turn it off after this. But if you're like me, when I first started, I remember setting my first expired appointment. Asked my broker, hey, can you go with me? She was busy because I set it that day. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm going to say. And I went out there, and of course I didn't get it, the expired listing, because I was competing against 4 or 5 other really, really good agents. So what do you feel like? So long question, long story to lead to a question. In your mind, is having a canned, good listing presentation important to setting an appointment and getting the listing?
Yes, 100% yes. And the reason for it is, and this goes to a little psychology, if you are confident that you can if you are confident that once you have the appointment, you have a very, very high likelihood of getting it, you will push much harder when you're setting the appointment on the phone. So if I knew that about 80% of the time that if I meet with guys like Kent, that I'm going to get that listing, if I knew that and had proven it to myself over and over and over and over and over again, then when I'm on the phone with guys like Kent and he's pushing back, I'm going to push that much harder. I'm going to handle objections that much better. I'm going to be that much more confident on the phone because I know that if I set that appointment, unless he squirms out on me, I have an 80% chance of taking it, or a 70%, or whatever your conversion ratio is. And so I like it because it gives you a ton of confidence. If your listing presentation is the same every time, you get really, really good at it. And and your prospect is just like, holy, I can't tell you how many times I've been on FSBO and expired appointments where they say, man, I'll be honest, I've never heard an agent explain it to me like you did. So, and that's not to pat myself on the back. That is because I've said the same thing hundreds of times, and I'm really good at saying it. And
it's your
that's
own
what impressed
at that point.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's you. It's not.
Yeah. So to answer your question along with way, yes.
Yeah. I agree with that. Over and over and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Right. Over and over and over again. I think not only that, going back to the point of it not being as transactional, if you have a good listing presentation with a good plan of action on how to get their home sold, and you're confident in that, and your numbers are 80%, and then you look at your numbers and say, man, anything I list 90% of the time it sells. Well, you're going to be even more confident at that point in time because you're going to say, I am the best person to be able to help you out. But if you get a listing and you don't know what to do, again, skills is going to get rid of, it's going to punish those people, or this market's going to punish the people that are non-skilled. It's just the truth of it all. Because you could list a home, you throw it up, and it would sell.
Right. But especially where the skills are going to get you if you don't have them is if you have to compete. And you said it earlier, if you don't have to compete, you don't need any skills. I mean, a blind monkey can list a property for sale. If someone just hands it to you and you get 50 offers before you get back to your car, anybody can sell in that. And you're not competing with any agents. But as soon as you have to compete with an agent who even has a little bit of wherewithal, you're going to lose. You're going to lose over and over and over and over, and you get out of the business.
So last thing I want to go over.
Sure.
Then we'll wrap it up. So what skills are important and do you need to develop to be able to list expireds, or really anything right now? What skills do you need to work on and develop?
I would say there's a few, but they are stepwise. In other words, the number one skill is your scripts and your objection handlers. That's number one. And the reason for it is when you get really good at setting appointments, if you can do that, then your listing presentation will get better over time. But if you suck at setting appointments, it's going to be really difficult going forward. So number one skill is your script and your objection handlers. And then your number two skill is, I would say, is to get your listing presentation, whatever that is, wherever you get it from, become very good, have it in the bag, know it inside and out. That's your number 2 skill. And then number 3,
Okay.
further down the road, is additional marketing. Because when sellers are pulled, specifically expired sellers, there's 2 things they want. Number 1, an agent that's competent in what they do, or at least they seem competent in what they do. And then number 2,
Competent and confident.
That's exactly right. And competence, your confidence goes up as you become more competent in what you do. Your confidence just goes through the roof. And so those 2, I think those are just almost interchangeable. But they also want, another thing they said, and this is from a National Association of Realtors poll, they also want marketing. And so you need to have, not only part of your listing presentation is how you're going to be different than other agents, but also part of your listing presentation needs to be the marketing that you're going to do. If you go in and just talk nothing but marketing, then they're like, okay. But if you talk about the skills that you have, how you're going to take them from point A to point B, how you're going to negotiate the contract, what you're going to do once you go under contract, if you talk through all of those things and then say, by the way, let's talk a little bit about marketing now. And then you go into the marketing and you have a marketing presentation that impresses them, you'll be knocking it out of the park over and over and over.
Totally agree. I'm gonna add a little bit more to that because I agree with everything that you said. So pre-framing is massive, and you need to get good, or future pacing pre-framing, meaning you're walking them through the process. And if this doesn't work, so let's talk about price for a second. If this price doesn't work, the next logical step, because we're not capturing any buyers, is to lower the price, and we need to have that conversation. So and being able to get,
Let me ask you this real quick. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to ask you this question. Do you have that conversation at the listing presentation, or are you having the conversation?
Absolutely. Nope. You have it at the listing presentation. And the reason why, and you do it after papers are signed. Great. Now that we have signed, there's going to be a few things. The market, and you're going to blame the market because it is the market. The market is going to tell us a few different things. One, it's going to tell us that we're overpriced. And the way it's going to do that is we're going to get no showings, no offers, and we are probably grossly overpriced. So we need to reduce it. Number 2, we get a few showings, no offers, and that tells us we're within the ballpark, but we're still priced a little bit too high. Or number 3, you're going to get a lot of showings, 1 or 2 offers, and that tells us we're priced right at market value. Or number 4, we're priced, or you're going to get a lot of showings, 5, 6, 7 offers, and that tells us we marketed it below, or we priced it below market value. We've created an auction effect. But this is the great news. You're hiring a master negotiator. So I'm going to be able to raise that price up with all the different offers that we have. That is the best case scenario. But that's what the market's going to tell us. And so guess what? When you call them to get a price reduction, you're going to say, hey, Matt, we had no showings, no offers. It's been 10 days. Remember when we were speaking at your house, what the market is telling us? Well, yeah, it means that we're grossly overpriced. I completely agree. Right. And then it's their idea to lower it.
Yeah.
I think that's great. The skill of pre-framing is going to be massive. It's going to make your conversation softer. Those hard conversations.
That's part of the skill that you keep alluding to, right? Is to have that conversation. I remember when I first started, I'd go out there and say, this is the price you need to list it at. And then that was it. That was the conversation. And the only time I'd talk about price reduction is when I would call them and we needed a price reduction. And then it was a fight with them over the phone. The last thing you want to be doing is fighting with your clients, right? You don't want to do that. So if you pre-frame it, just as you say, look, here's plan A, but I want you to understand that there's a plan B, a plan C, and even a plan D if it's necessary. And here's what that plan looks like. And here's where we would need to implement that plan. When you give them that, as you just alluded to, they already know. So when you have to have the price reduction, Lord forbid, when you have to have that price reduction conversation, they're already ready for it. You don't have to fight for it. They're like, oh man, this, I really don't want to lower the price. Mr. Seller, I don't want to lower the price either. I really don't. But when the market is telling us what we need to do, I would be remiss in my duties to you if I wasn't listening. And I am listening to the market. So and that's part of my job to you, is to listen to the market and then respond appropriately. And that's what we're going to do right now by lowering this price. That's huge.
So
But you
9
have to
times
talk
out
about
of 10,
it.
I would say with expireds are typically amiable personalities, meaning they're willing to do what you say. They're open to that idea. They don't have a lot of pushback. If they were high D's, they would have fired you 2 months into it because you weren't getting the job done. Amiable
Or tell you
go.
or tell you how to do your job, or tell you
yes,
this is
exactly.
what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. You're like, no, we're not. I'm the agent.
and that's exactly right. So really the disconnect in what I've seen is most expireds are quite nice, especially when you go out and meet them, but their agent wasn't strong enough or scripted enough or whatever you want to call it to call them and say, hey, the market is telling us this. What would you like to do? Well, what do you think we should do, Ken? I think we should lower the price. Kind of what you said. The market is telling us this, and we would be remiss if we did not listen.
Right.
So that's going to be huge in this market. Yeah. Awesome. Matt, I think we cover everything expired. So one more plug. Red-X is doing their end of year sale, so you can get massive discounts on all of their different products they have. Don't know what those discounts look like, but you should call into them. Rewatch this video because there's a lot of really great information for listing expireds and being successful at listing them. And that's exactly what Red-X does. It gives you the tools to do that. Any other last final comments you want to plug in?
Yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff, and we went kind of deep in some things. And I'm going to tell you guys, if y'all are new to calling expireds, or even if you've done it for a little while, the things that Kent and I talked about today are from years of experience in doing it. And that just comes with time. So I would argue the best way to get good at expireds, if you haven't done it, is to just do it. If you have call reluctance, I know I did, get on the phone and just know not to take it personal. These people, if they're frustrated, it's simply because they've had 50 other people call before you called. That's okay. Just shrug it off. Hey, thank you for your time, and move on. Move to the next number. This is a great opportunity to grow your skill, because one of the things I will say, and I don't want to take up too much more time, but one of the things I will say is me calling expireds and for sale by owners has increased my skill in real estate, has increased my skill on the phone, has increased my ability to speak to potential prospects and clients. And it has put me heads and tails, I feel, above other agents who do not do that, because you have to think quick. You have to hone your skill. You have to get good at what you're doing when you call FSBOs and expireds. And it will put you heads and tails above other agents. It will. So just get on the phone and just do it.
I'll leave it with this that matches perfectly with what you just said. And I've said this quote a million times because it's one of my favorites. When you do the activity, you either get the result that you're looking for, or you get the lesson required in getting the result you're looking for. So either way, you can't fail. If you're just calling them, you're either going to get the listing, make some money, or you're going to get lessons, just like you said, to increase your skill level, to be able to list no matter what market you're in. You'll no longer have to be scared of the market.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Matt, I appreciate you doing this with me today. Matt took time out of his day with his daughter, which most people won't want to hear that, but to come in and join us. If you want to catch Matt and I prospecting, starting January 2nd, we are going to be every day like clockwork on that Facebook group of Set Listing Appointments with Ken Brown. So join.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Awesome. Okay, Matt, we'll talk to you. Enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.
You too, buddy. Talk to you soon.